You saying you're anti-
Hey everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk. I'm John, and today we're here to talk about the 1992 biographical epic film, Malcolm X. We're also here to talk about its brand new Criterion 4K Blu-ray release that just came out. But before we dive into that, if you are a fan of 4K Blu-ray reviews, tech reviews, game and movie reviews, we try to do them all here on the channel. And nothing would help us out more than by you liking this video and subscribing to the channel. So Malcolm X was released in 1992. It was directed by Spike Lee, stars Denzel Washington, Angela Bassett, Delroy Lindo, amongst many other great cast members. And this is very much a biographical epic film that deals with Malcolm X from his childhood all the way up to his death in 1963. We take a look at his upbringing, his life before prison, his life in prison, his life in the Nation of Islam, and everything else. And for me, this is my favorite biographical film of all time. It beats such great films as Ray and Walk the Line, many great biographical films that we've had. It's also my favorite epic, even more than films like Lawrence of Arabia and Gandhi. I think this film is a masterpiece. This is Spike Lee's greatest film. It's either this or Do the Right Thing, but I give the slight edge to Malcolm X because he had a lot more to tackle, and I do think that the filmmaking is slightly better than it is in Do the Right Thing, even though I do love Do the Right Thing. And they deal with very similar issues, such as racial issues that we have to deal with here in America. And Malcolm X is one of the greatest civil rights leaders of all time. He's right up there with the Martin Luther King Jr.'s of the world. And his story is so fascinating that I think for a lot of people, including myself, because in school they don't really teach you too much about Malcolm X. They kind of just gloss over it. They concentrate a lot more on Martin Luther King Jr. This film is where a lot of people like myself learned about Malcolm X. We started here, then we would work our way back and find out more about the history of him and what he really meant to the civil rights movement. And this film itself, even though it's not a complete one-for-one fact-for-fact based film, it still just shows you what the world was like, what he had to go through, what his parents had to go through, what his wife and kids had to go through, and just his entire mindset. And Denzel Washington, he was born to play Malcolm X.
He'll want to get off of drugs. He'll want to get away from a life of crime. He'll want to get away from committing adultery and fornication. Then he would want to get off the welfare. He would want to get a job.
It's like, I always know it's Denzel Washington, but in this film, that is Malcolm X. He should have won the Academy Award for Best Actor. Unfortunately, Al Pacino did win this for Scent of a Woman, which is weird because that was really just making up for the fact he didn't win Best Actor for The Godfather or The Godfather Part 2. And you could argue that Denzel Washington should have won Best Actor in 1992, and they got him back and they gave it to him for Training Day, which I know a lot of people like Training Day, but I don't think that's one of my favorite films. And for Denzel Washington, this is his best performance. He easily should have been awarded for Best Actor that year. This film was only actually nominated for 2 Academy Awards, this and Costume Design. It didn't win for either. It should have won for Costume Design. It should have been nominated for Best Picture. It should have been nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay, but unfortunately it wasn't. And it's just another one of those where Spike Lee kind of got robbed at the Academy Awards again. Now, Unforgiven did win Best Picture in 1992, and I think I like Unforgiven more than this film, but I do think that this film is a lot more significant, and it is in the Library of Congress for a reason as being historically significant, so that should tell you everything you need to know. This film should have probably won Best Picture. This film should have won way more awards than it did because as far as filmmaking and craftsmanship, it is one of just a thing of beauty. The cinematography is Ernest Dickinson, who's also the director of Juice. He worked with Spike Lee up until this film, and it is very much a co-creator kind of film because Spike Lee does appear in this film, and when he's on camera, the director is Ernest Dickinson. It's very much just as much Ernest Dickinson's film, I believe, as much as it is Spike Lee's film. Spike Lee is the driving force behind this film. He's the main reason this film got made. He's the one that was going out there and trying to raise funding for this because this was a hard film to make. They had to raise money. It took a lot. The studio wanted a $20 million film and a 2-hour film, but Spike Lee said to do this right, we have to make this a $30 million film and make it 3 hours. And this is a 3-hour and 20-minute film, and it flies by. I've actually watched this film twice this year because I watched it earlier this year before they announced the Criterion release, and then when they announced it for Criterion, I'm like, well, I guess I'm watching it again this year. And believe me, I was not upset by that at all, because when I watched this again for this review, I could have easily watched it again the next day. Those 3 hours and 20 minutes just fly by because it's just such a good movie, and the pacing is never slow. They never really take the time to catch our breath. We're always going from scene to scene, and obviously Denzel Washington's acting really does help to carry it. He really, like I said, is Malcolm X. The speeches he has to do are incredible.
So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is teaching you and I and trying to tell the white man to get this powder keg out of his house.
Like, just do a side-by-side comparison of his speeches and Malcolm X's speeches. It really is unbelievable. Denzel Washington, I can't stress this enough, should have won the Best Actor for this film because he did just such a great job. Angela Bassett is good. Delroy Lindo, again, I believe as far as acting performances go, he is the second best actor in this film. He does such a great job as West Indian Archie. It's just really hard for me to describe how good this film is to you without, rambling on for hours, because there are just so many facts about this film that are very interesting. Actually, if you guys are a huge fan of this film, there's a great podcast, a 4-part podcast done by the Cinephiles, where they break down this film scene to scene way better than I could ever do. Check that out if you are a fan of this film, because like I said, this is one of the most historically significant, one of the best biographical epic films you'll ever see. If you haven't checked out Malcolm X, I can recommend it highly. This is a 10 out of 10 film. One of my personal favorites. Definitely give this a watch. But we're here today to talk about its brand new Criterion 4K Blu-ray release, and that's exactly what we're gonna do. Well, ladies and gentlemen, here it is. This is the Criterion 4K Blu-ray release of Malcolm X. And this comes in the Digibook, which is one of their best packaging as far as Criterion goes. They only whip this out for the real special movies. If you're a Criterion fan, we're eating good this week because we got this and Wall-E in this nice, beautiful packaging. And now this beautiful packaging with the 4K only does come with the 4K. So if you just order the Blu-ray, which you can, if you don't want the 4K, you can just get the Blu-ray, which is just a compressed version of this brand new scan that is seen over by Ernest Dickerson. So if you do just want the Blu-ray and you don't mind not having Dolby Vision or HDR, you can just buy the Blu-ray, but that will not come in this packaging. That is going to come in the standard Criterion packaging. If you want this beautiful packaging where, you could slide it out of the side and you get this nice package, you're not going to get that on the Blu-ray. You're only going to get this on the 4K. Now, the box art does look the same. It's the same picture, but you don't get this slidable case. The back is exactly the same, too. This is spine number 1160 for those keeping track of the Criterion releases. And you turn this open. Again, beautiful art. Beautiful. The Blu-ray discs are in red and the 4K is in black, and that is going to be on your left. That is this disc right here. These are your two Blu-ray discs. That second disc is going to have your compressed version of that 4K scan, and then the third Blu-ray disc is only extras on it. There is no film on that, just some brand new extras and some previously released extras. You also get some paperwork in here, and this is a really nice booklet, and I really did love it. I was just flipping through it right before. Well made, again, great paper stock. Criterion never, ever half-asses those booklets. If you're a fan of reading and checking out just whatever, every little bit you possibly can of your purchase, you're not going to be disappointed by that booklet. And I compared this to my 2011 Blu-ray release of Malcolm X, which I really did love. I really love the packaging on this. This is one of those like book kind of looking ones that they released. I have this in like Ghostbusters as well. So if you look around, this is actually a really nice packaging. You pop this over. It's got a book in it too, but it's kind of stuck in there. You can't pull it out. It does just kind of make like a booklet, but the disc design on this too is really good. This was not a cheap Warner Brothers release. I actually really do love that. It was actually a very good release from them. They didn't half-ass that one, so Criterion actually really did have to do some work to impress me, because I really did love that Blu-ray. I've watched it many times, and as far as new extras go, we do get some new interviews on here that Criterion did for this release with Spike Lee and the composer and some other people, and those interviews are really awesome. Now, there is a making-of documentary called Any Means Necessary. That is on the previous Blu-ray release, but it's also on this 4K release, and I recommend checking that out if you want to find out how hard and difficult it was to make this film, and just what everyone had to go through, and just the costume design, the world building. If you want to find out how Ernest Dickerson shot a lot of these shots, because in the first third of the movie, if you saw, this movie's broken up really into three parts of Malcolm X's life, and the first part you're trying to go for that old look, Telecolor kind of look. He literally stretched out a stocking, I forgot the name of the stocking, and put it over the lens, and that's how you get that old kind of brown flare, those browns and grays and dark greens, just that old 40s and 50s look. You get that because Ernest Dickerson really planned out all his shots, and then the second, when we're in the prison, it looks very different from the first part, and then the third part, it really clears up. And the 4K really does show this well as well. That really does make those early scenes pop, because like I said, this film does have Dolby Vision and HDR10. It's in its original aspect ratio of 1.85, so that's going to fill up your screen beautifully. And it did look beautiful. You break it down in those three parts, and all three parts look good. All 3 parts look different, so you know that it's a different section of his life. You get the first part before he goes to prison, the second part where he's in prison, and the third part where he comes out of prison, then he joins the Nation of Islam, and then the rest of his life after he leaves the Nation of Islam. The first part when we're back in that Technicolor era, and then the second part when they're in prison, it's got kind of this blue-green filter on it now that it didn't have on the previous release, and I've seen that be a complaint for a lot of people, is that this new blue-green filter over the part where he's in prison is their biggest negative. And I went back and compared those scenes to the 2011 Blu-ray where it didn't have this filter, and it really didn't bother me. Actually, I would say I probably still prefer the 4K for those scenes because I do think it did actually add to it. I think I'm the minority in that, but Ernest Dickerson did oversee this entire scan, so this was probably his choice, and his original vision for the 4K and for the film in general was for it to look like this. He probably wanted that blue-green filter originally, but maybe back then he didn't have that technology, and just like with George Lucas and Star Wars or Steven Spielberg and E.T., he wanted to go back and fix his work. And for me, I really do like it. I actually think it does add to it. It didn't take me out of it. Now, the biggest thing about this upgrade is I think it's a lot brighter. It looks brighter from beginning to end than it does over the previous Blu-ray. They didn't take away almost any of the film grain. It's still a pretty grainy film, which is good, actually. You don't want to put too much DNR on that and wipe this film clean. I think there's much grain. You don't want it to look snowy, but there is a fine line, and I think that Criterion found that perfect balance of keeping a good amount of film grain, but not having it be too noticeable to where it takes you out of it. I think they did a perfect job on the grain of this film. Definitely didn't overuse any DNR. If they even used any, it would be just a very little bit, and I think that's fine because, yes, the previous Blu-ray, the grain was noticeable, but I do think it actually really did help that Blu-ray because the previous Blu-ray, it's not a bad Blu-ray at all. This 4K is just a really big jump from that Blu-ray. I don't think this is the greatest 4K I have ever seen, but this is definitely the best that this film in particular has ever looked, and I think it's the best it's ever going to look. The fact that we had Ernest Dickerson in there really playing around with the colors and making sure that the color grading was up to his choices and up to what he really wanted this film to look like. I really do think that the film can't look any better than it does right now. I was honestly, I was pretty blown away by it. You know, if I didn't see Wall-E this week, I would have said, wow, this is one of the best Criterion releases of the year. And it is still one of the best Criterion releases of the year, but I mean, unfortunately, Wall-E really just kind of knocked my socks off, and then I had to watch this the next day, and you know, I love Malcolm X, and I love Malcolm X more than I love Wall-E, but Malcolm X in comparison to Wall-E, it's a little tough, because Malcolm X, although, like I said, a great 4K, it's just not the greatest 4K I've ever seen, but there was really nothing wrong visually with this. It's a big jump up from that 2011 Blu-ray, which is good. It's still the best version of this film as far as visuals go. So you're going to be very happy with what you got here as far as the new visual upgrade. And the audio, it is a DTS Master Audio 5.1 on here. And it does great work. It really does. It made good use of all my speakers. This has an amazing score, so it's going to be spreading around your room. It does a great job. All, like, as far as dialogue goes, a very dialogue-heavy film. You know, there's a lot of speeches in here. Everything came in crystal clear. I didn't hear any issues. As far as the mix goes on the audio levels in comparison to the score, I never had to turn my volume up or down in any scene, whether it be a little bit more heavy on the dialogue or not. I never had to worry about that. Everything was balanced perfectly. I was able to leave it on one volume and watch it throughout the entire film and have no issue. It sounded great. I definitely could say that that is a very good DTS HD Master Audio track. Would I have liked a Dolby Atmos track? Sure. But is it necessary for this? I don't think it's necessary, and I think the DTS HD did a great job. It did definitely good work on carrying the audio of this film and carrying the score. I definitely don't have any complaints about that. Now, as far as extras go, like I said, we get some new interviews on here. Everything else is previously released, but there are a ton of good extras on here. And if you want the best compilation of all the extras we've had and plus all the new ones, you're not going to do better than you do on this. This is the absolute ultimate edition of Malcolm X. This is for fans of Malcolm X. This is for people who are fans of collecting film, people who are just fans of film in general. If you are a movie fan, you have to see Malcolm X at some point in your life just to see the amazing craftsmanship of making a movie, how to adapt the screenplay, and just really just how to set your shots, because it really is incredible. You see how well structured this film is from the opening crane shot into a steady cam walking shot. It's just unbelievable. Like, if you're a fan of just making movies, you have to grab this just to find out what Spike Lee, Ernest Dickerson, the entire cast and crew had to go through to get this film made. It really is just a great package with a beautiful box, beautiful audio, beautiful visuals, And then the film itself is just tremendous. This really is the real deal, Holyfield. I can't think of a better 4K version or a better version of Malcolm X that you are ever going to see. Now, I can't quite give this a 10 out of 10 because we just gave Wall-E a 10 out of 10. But if we had gotten this any other week than when Wall-E came out, this is easily a 10 out of 10 because I think Wall-E is just a slightly better package and they came out on the same exact day. I'm going to give this a 9.5 out of 10. It's definitely worth your time. It's definitely worth your money. The Criterion 50% off sale is still going on the day of this recording, which is November 25th. So if you haven't grabbed this yet at the 50% off price, I believe of $24.99, this is an absolute steal. I can recommend it highly. Definitely grab it at that price if you can, but if you miss out and you're watching this video after the sale is over, it's still worth it at full price. Like I said, this is one of the best Criterion releases. I think you're going to be really happy that you grabbed it, and I promise you, you will not be disappointed with your purchase. But before we leave here today, we do have a little bit of business to take care of. It's Friday, and that means it's time for our digital code giveaway. And if you're new to the channel, we do this every single week. We ask you guys 2 questions, and all you have to do is answer one of those questions in the comment section below. And once you do, you come back to Monday's video. As long as you answer one of those questions, your name goes on a wheel that I'll have on this screen right here. And we spin that wheel twice, and we will pick 2 winners. And those 2 winners have their choice of the digital codes that you saw on your screen before you today. But what are those 2 questions? Well, I figured in honor of Malcolm X and the new Criterion 4K release, I wanted to ask you guys, what is your favorite biography film? That could be any film such as 42, Ray, Walk the Line, any film that just is dealing with one person and their story and everything like that. We've had a lot of great music biopics over the years, so that is going to be my first question. What is your favorite biography film? And then I want to ask you guys a little bit more of a negative question. What film disappointed you most throughout your entire life? What film did you go into the theater super excited, or you rented from Blockbuster and the film just let you down? So what film disappointed you most? So don't forget to answer one of those questions in the comment section below, and then you got a chance to win this week's digital code giveaway. And if you guys want to grab Malcolm X from Amazon, we will leave our Amazon associate link in the description below. You can grab it from there, and it costs no extra money for you, but it does really help the channel out. And another thing that really helps the channel out, guys, is you liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and telling all your friends.